So we're going to talk about taking measurements. Ideally, you actually want to train somebody up to take your measurements for you, but that's not always possible. So we're going to take them ourselves, yeah, you can always get someone to check them. People worry a lot about taking measurements, and they quite often think that they're going to get it wrong, especially if they're doing it on somebody else. They panic that they're going to get it wrong. If the tape measure physically fits round you, then you're okay. You can't actually get it that wrong. If you imagine once the tape measure is round you, you can't be 5 centimetres too small because it's physically gone round you, so it can't be that bad, okay? So first of all, we're going to take our waist measurement. Now our waist is higher than we normally think it is. Nowadays, there's more sort of high-waisted things in, so we know where our waist is a little bit more, but when I was younger, everything was always low-waisted, and people seemed to think that their waist was a bit lower. So it's just above your hips, and it's the smallest part of your waist, of your sides, just above your belly button. So you're going to take the tape measure around. If you're taking measurements on somebody else, you normally put your finger behind the tape measure, but it's easier when you take it on yourself to put your thumb behind your tape measure. So just hold the end and come around, keep your thumb behind and your finger on top, and it will hold it to a nice firm place. Then you need to breathe out, because we all naturally hold our stomach in when we take measurements. So just make sure you want to actually be able to move and breathe. So just make sure it slides around a little bit, so it's sitting just above your belly button in that thinnest part. And then you can drop the back part of the tape measure, and that will be your measurement. Okay, so we're going to write that down. That's going to be our waist. And then we're going to take our hip measurement. Now our hip is lower than we normally think it is. So most people think their hips are here, but actually they're here. Okay, and it's where the joint, it's the sort of the ball joint bit where it moves. It's not down here, it's there, and it's the fattest part of your bottom. Turn that way, you can see. Okay, so we're going to come again. So take the end of your tape measure, come around, hold it so that it's just on that ball joint and around the fat part of your bottom. You don't need to breathe out, so it won't make any difference. But we do need to check that that is the widest part of our body, because we're all different shapes. So some people might find that their thighs actually are fatter, just a bit lower, and I tend to carry my weight a little bit higher. So we're going to take, although that's our hip measurement, across the bum, we're going to hold that and we're going to wiggle it up, so help on the other side. We're going to wiggle it up, and then we're going to wiggle it all the way down. Hold it tight on the join, and wiggle it all the way down, and make sure that it can pass all the way through. Once you're sure that it can, and it's your widest measurement, you're going to take that measurement and write that down. That's your hip. Okay, we are going to do, which we don't really need, but I'm going to show you anyway. Not for this, we don't. We're going to do our waist, so where we had our waist, to our hip measurement. Okay, so because most people think their waist is a bit lower and their hip is a bit higher, people assume there's only a few centimetres, maybe 5 centimetres between the two, but actually there's more like 20, so it's just worth having a look and seeing. Yeah, I'm 19 between my waist and my hip. So waist to hip. We're not actually going to use it, we're only actually going to use our hip measurement and the length, but it's always good to know these things. So we're going to take from our waist, we need to go down to our ankle. Now ideally you need somebody else to do that, because it is, as soon as you bend, it changes the distance. Okay, but I have a little trick for doing it yourself, and that is to drop the sort of, zero end of the tape measure down. So look down, drop it down to your ankle, hold it on your hip, stand up, and then take it to your waist, and then that will be your measurement. Okay. It's surprising how many of us have the same sort of waist hip or hip measurement to height. I'm sure there's something in that. If you do have somebody around in your household that can just double check that for you, that's really, really helpful. But you know, that's a good way to do it. So just dangle it down to your ankle, hold in place, so look down, hold it in place at your hip, because that bit won't move, and then stand up tall and take it up to your waist. Okay, so that's the measurements that we're going to take. Then we're going to have a look at the pattern and the sizings, because there's this really weird thing with sizings. I'm sure you all know that when you go to shops, they don't have standard sizings across the board. They just don't. Different shops, they have their own set of sizes dependent on their market audience. So if you go into Topshop, which is aimed at young teenagers, you know, a size 18 in there is probably smaller than a size, or the same size as a size 10 in Marks and Spencer's. There really is no standard sizings, and that is the same with patterns. So we have to look at our measurements and compare them to the pattern. Now, every pattern you can alter to any size, and it's not that hard. It sounds really scary, but it's actually quite easy once you know how to do it. But you always need to check. The joy of making your own clothes is to make them to fit. But if you just get a pattern and you follow, say I'm normally a size 12 and I just get a pattern and I make the size 12, the likelihood of that fitting me is the same as me walking into any high street store and expecting it to fit me. There's also a few things that really try us. So a lot of the patterns are from America. Their sizings are different, so 16 here is like an 18 there. So that will really throw you. So you really do need to check your measurements, okay? So I have put in with your pattern the different sizes. So you're going to compare your hip measurement to the sizes, and whichever size your hip measurement fits into, that's the size you're going to cut out and use, okay?